If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Hi everybody, this is your host Mike Callahan. This is the Watchman News on July 1st, 2014. Happy July. Got a lot of stuff going on. I started out with Corinthians 13 there. It would happen to be my my absolute favorite of all the chapters in the entire Bible. I can't say my absolute favorite verse, but it is my favorite chapter. I love that. It's in 1 Corinthians, I'm sorry. You probably knew that. So I wanted to start out with that because it's very important. It's very important that we understand love, and it's very important that we all get back to the type of love that we should have for one another. And I'm not just meaning girlfriends and boyfriends and parents and children. I mean just a typical love for humanity. We all need to get back to that. In today's world, today's society, we are so full of hate, intolerance, and we just need to open ourselves up, and we need to stop. We need to slow down. We're so busy in our everyday lives that it seems like we forget to remember that everybody has their own life. Everybody has their own struggles, you know. And if we could just step in each other's shoes, you know, for a little bit, we'd have a lot more understanding. And I do believe that understanding and love are so twined together. You know, the more understanding you have of somebody, the more you love, more love you're going to have for them. Even if it's just, you know, a type of humanitarian love, just as a fellow human being. It's very important. It's very, very important. I do believe that we have some very, very dark times headed our way in this country, and around the world, for that matter. And it's going to take love. The only way we're going to get through it is love. Hate is just going to destroy everything. And that's one of my biggest fears. There's just so much hate in the world today that I'm worried that people won't work together. They won't join together and do what needs to be done. Like has happened many, many times in the past throughout this country and throughout the world. We definitely aren't prepared in this country for anything. If Facebook would go down, I wonder how many people would have to seek medical attention, you know. You know, just the little things that the people in this country can't seem to tolerate or get a grip on. And so it really, you know, if we would lose something like our power for an extended period of time, I just don't see how people in this country could cope. And the answer is love. And of course, God is love. And I really do believe that if more people would take God seriously, I'm not saying religion, I'm saying God. Read that Bible, let it speak to you. Let God speak to you. Turn everything off around you, everything. Turn off the TV, the radios, the computer. Turn on everything and just let God speak to you. Just be there for Him. Just be the vessel that you're supposed to be, and He will speak to you, and He will do so out of love. And if everybody would spend a little time every single day to do that, I sure try to, then it helps. It really helps to see that life that everybody has. It lets you slow down a little bit and understand, that everybody has those struggles, no matter if they're different from your struggles or not. That doesn't matter. Everybody has struggles, and nobody wants to go through life with somebody, especially somebody they don't know, judging them or anything like that. It really makes things harder on people. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here. I wanted to start out a little bit of important news that's going on. Oh, well, actually, before we get to the news, I apologize. I mentioned Facebook earlier. I just so happened to see two things on Facebook that I wanted to share with you. So it's going to be a moment before we get to the actual news. But this was a Facebook group called NIV Bible, and they had something, and I thought it was really, really good, and I wanted to share it with you. And it's titled "Remove the Mask." Sometimes we're afraid people will see who we really are, but they didn't know, we think to ourselves, keeping our pain and problems hidden behind our socially acceptable masks. We fear that our trials, our deepest hurts, are too much for others to bear. We don't want to bring others down, so we keep pretending that we're up. We even try to keep up the ruse before God, afraid that He might frown on what we're really thinking. We offer platitudes instead of heartfelt prayer. We sing songs and say words and sound good on the outside, when in our hearts we're dying for the sustenance to satisfy our parched souls. When the psalmist David, we can pray. With the psalmist David, we can pray. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you, in a dry, parched land where there is no water. That's Psalm chapter 63, verse 1. God invites us to hear our woes because His love and promises of hope are even greater. What have you been keeping from God? Come before Him today and tell Him what is on your mind and in your heart. Then listen. He will lift you from the pits and place you in the center of His love. Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from Him. Trust in Him at all times. You people, pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. That's Psalm chapter 62, verses 5 through 8. And that's a devotional that's found in the NIV One Impact Bible that I believe Zondervan Bibles offers, zondervan.com. I thought that was real fitting for the show, and I wanted to share that. One of the little memes that goes around Facebook, pictures with the phrases on it and whatnot. That somebody I went to school shared today. It says, when the devil keeps on asking you to look at your past, there must be something good in the future he doesn't want you to see. And I've dealt a lot with that in my own personal struggles. And I was having a hard time moving on with my life. I kept looking at my past, and I've got kind of a not a great situation that I'm in, in the process of getting a divorce, and I haven't seen my children in over 5 months, 5.5 months at this point. And it's hard to look forward when all you want to do is look at those boys. And at the same time, it's counterproductive, because if you can't look forward, you can't do what's necessary to be able to see those boys again. So it's a tricky situation. And I really tried with everything I had to always go to God with it. You know, pick up the Bible, read from the Bible. Um, Try to sit down with no distractions and have conversations with God about it. And it's hard, and I understand that. And I also understand my determination that I have, and I understand the faith that I have, and the love that I have for God. And I was even finding it to be extremely hard um, having those attributes, and it was rough to stay focused on that. And it came to a point where I realized that, okay, well, the marriage obviously isn't going to be saved. And so I need to, instead of looking back on that, instead of trying to focus on the past, or even focus on the things that I did wrong, because I was doing a lot of that. Over these 5.5 months that we've been separated, I have really gained a new understanding for love. At the same time, I learned who I was all over again, which is very important. Because of all that hustle and bustle of life that I was speaking about earlier, I had lost myself. And let me tell you something, when you lose yourself, you're not good for yourself, you're not good for anybody else. You're just, all you can do is go through life. And I do believe that that's what causes a lot of the bitterness in today, and I believe that's why a lot of the people have the lack of tolerance that they do, is because they've lost themselves. And when you losing yourself is the most horrible thing that can really happen. And I had been lost for many years. Um, I really I struggled. I struggled. I was living a lifestyle that I didn't want to live because I didn't agree with myself. But here I was living it, and I did it for years. And in the process, I totally forgot who I was, what my morals were, what my standards were. I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated at myself, and that caused me to be frustrated at my loved ones, and it was just, it was not good. So I'm just sharing a little bit of my story. You know, a lot of people might look at it from the outside, and they might say, oh, well, you had an affair. You had a relationship with another woman. You know, why should anybody feel for you, or why should anybody pity you? I'm telling you, everybody's got their own walk. Everybody's got their own struggle. I can't excuse anything I did, and I'm not going to try to excuse anything I did. But I can say that there were reasons. There were reasons I felt what I did was necessary. Although I did go about it the wrong way, and there's nothing that excuses that. Nothing on this earth that excuses that. But so just remember that when you walk through life, you know, and don't judge others either. You know, when you see somebody struggling, or, you know, when you see them dealing with a particular situation that you looking from the outside would say, well, I wouldn't do that way. Understand there could be a lot of underlying things that is causing that person to deal with that differently than you. Love is the answer, and God is love. And I'll say it again, you know, if we focus on God, if we get back close to God, we will understand these things, we will feel these things. This last 5.5 months has actually been more of a blessing to me than anything, because it has got me so in tune and so in touch with myself and with God and with what love really is, and how we have to love God first. If we love God first, everything else will fall into place. One of the things that I'd learned that I had really battled with is because there's a priority to it. And when it comes to love, first it's God, and then it's your spouse, and then it's your children. Well, I understand loving God first. That just makes sense. But I did not understand loving my spouse before my children, because my children mean the absolute entire world to me. So I had a really hard time putting myself, or my wife, before my children. I could not do it. And so I struggled with this. I spoke with God about it. And I spoke with a pastor at a church about it. I spoke with a good friend about it. And it took me a good couple of weeks before I really seen it. And then I did understand it. Because, of course, if you put God first, that's where you're supposed to put Him. Then if you put your spouse next, then the family's going to fall in place too. The children will fall in place. But you have to put that spouse next, because if they don't feel love, that's going to come back not only on yourself but on the children as well. So I mean, it's very important to follow that priority list. And I had failed to do that throughout my entire marriage. I just put my children first. I mean, not before. Well, I can't necessarily say not before God either, because I've made that mistake too. But I definitely put them before I had put my wife, and that caused problems way up until the end. In fact, that's what caused the truth behind what's caused the problems in the end. So, but like I said, after having long conversations with God, after reading the Bible, after thinking over in my head the things that are best, and there were other issues and stuff like that involved. I'll tell you what, they say walk a mile in somebody's shoes. I think sometimes people would have to walk 50 in my shoes to even begin to understand. So I decided, and my buddy John would be proud of me, I decided to detach. And that's what I did. I detached from the situation. You know, there's two ways you can detach. You can either detach out of love, or you can detach out of anger. And I would highly suggest, if you're in a situation where you have to detach, that you would detach out of love. And I myself, I think I had to use a little bit of both to detach. And just understand that God does have better plans for me, and that I should just accept those better plans. And I didn't see it. I really didn't see it. But I was trusting God. And for 3 days, I put trust in God that He had something better for me. And then maybe I just didn't see it. And it's really interesting, because now I do believe that I am seeing that better plan. And you just have to trust in God. And I was having such an issue putting that full 110% trust into God and just letting Him drive. Just scooting over and jumping in the passenger seat and just letting Him drive. And the moment I did, it took 3 days. 3 days. And I was shown just how my life could turn around. And from what I see now, He does have something better planned for me. I'm looking very forward to see how my children relate to this future of mine, because I haven't seen them for 5.5 months. At this point, I can't legally see them or anything. We'll see what happens. But let's get to some news. I spent 20 minutes on that. Let's get to some news. So on the East Coast, looks like they're going to have some excitement for the 4th of July. Tropical Storm Arthur forms, forecast to become hurricane on right up East Coast, July 2nd through the 5th. I'll read the news article here. The first tropical storm of 2014 Atlantic hurricane season has formed off the east coast of Florida and will pester much of the U.S. East Coast between now and the July 4th holiday weekend. Named Arthur, it's the latest first tropical storm in any given season to form in the Atlantic since 2004. Arthur is forecast to crawl up the southeast coast over the next 2 days, slowly strengthening. The National Hurricane Center predicts Arthur will then reach Category 1 hurricane early Friday, July 4th, when it lifts north from the North Carolina Outer Banks to offshore the Delmarva Peninsula. For the moment, Arthur's coastal impacts are minimal. The heavy rain and thunderstorms remain displaced to the south of the storm's center, and during the day today, only the occasional rain band is expected to affect coastal areas of the eastern Florida peninsula. A tropical storm watch is in effect from Fort Pierce to Flagler Beach, in eastern Florida. A recent analysis of surface wind and pressure from the RAP model Also shows a very lopsided system. The business end is all over open ocean with minimal winds and rain affecting coastal Florida. Track forecasts from the usual suite of models are in excellent agreement now, giving high confidence to its future course. After meandering for another day, it should finally make a steady move up to the north and northeast Wednesday afternoon while intensifying. During the day on Thursday, we can expect a strong tropical storm off the South Carolina coast, then a possible landfall as a minimal hurricane early Friday near the Outer Banks of North Carolina. From there, it remains offshore, cruising by the Mid-Atlantic area into the Delmarva Peninsula. That's hard to say together. During the day on Friday, the bulk of the rain from this system will remain offshore through Friday, with the exception of the coastal areas of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and possibly the Delmarva, depending on the storm's exact track. The North Carolina Outer Banks are most vulnerable to hazards from this storm and are likely to contend with heavy rain, tropical storm force winds, and some coastal flooding Thursday night into Friday morning. While locations further inland, towards the I-95 corridor, are unlikely to be directly impacted by the storms, a cold front sweeping through the eastern U.S. may draw in some of the storm's tropical moisture. Much of the East Coast will experience a wet week ahead of time, with the southeast rain coming mostly in the next 2 days and the northeast more on Wednesday through Friday. Forecast totals over the next 5 days through Sunday morning are shown. Well, you can't see the map, but I do. In Washington, D.C., enhanced rainfall and thunderstorms are possible Thursday into Thursday night, possibly lingering into Friday morning, mainly in areas east of the city. By Friday afternoon, the region should be drying out. Rain and possibly some gusty winds would impact the Delmarva, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware beaches late Thursday through Friday afternoon, if it tracks close enough to the coast. Depending on exactly how far offshore the storm is by Friday evening, it looks like the greatest likelihood of a fireworks spoiler is going to be the coastal regions of New Jersey up into northern New England. All beaches up and down the East Coast will experience higher surf and enhanced rip tides risks this week, especially Thursday through Saturday. So, I'm kind of interested to see how this storm pans out. I know they didn't think Hurricane Sandy was really going to be anything. As I recall, they didn't expect it to do what it did. It just worked out that way. There's a lot of discussion about weather modification and weather manipulation, and there's a lot of people that will argue that, oh, that's just crazy talk, go get your tinfoil hat. Well, I hate to spoil it for you, but you can go to the actual government websites right on the internet and research the weather modification and manipulation programs and stuff. They've been doing it for years. In fact, during the Vietnam War, they would seed the clouds to make it rain. They did that a lot over there in Vietnam. So we've been manipulating the weather one way or another for many, many years. Now they just do it with radio waves, high frequency, high altitude radio waves. So it's going to be interesting to see if it takes a turn like Sandy did, and if it turns into New York or anything like that, and if it gets to reach strong hurricane potential as it tracks up the East Coast. I know I'll be watching for it. There's right off of the East Coast, there's I forget what they call that. There's like a jet stream there, or it's a stream. It's a coast stream. Anyway, it's a flow of air, and it's been slowing down significantly over the years. And that's why we've had so much change in our climate here in the United States. I know you hear a lot about climate change, and you hear about CO2 and all this. Well, I hate to break it to people that buy all that, but that's not the case. In fact, it's been proven already that the CO2 follows the temperature change. It's not that the temperature change follows the CO2. So that kind of debunks that theory there. But this flow has been slowing down, and it's getting so slow it's almost not even there. And what that flow does is it helps keep our jet stream up in place. This is something that I've been watching for a very, very long time. And so that's why we have such the wild weather swings that we do. And if you notice, our seasons are a little bit off, and when we switch seasons, it just swings back and forth drastically. I mean, they're just major changes. It'd be super hot and then get really cold and then super hot and super cold. I mean, it just bounces back and forth, and that's because we don't have that air current to help keep our jet stream stabilized. So a lot of things, and you can tie it to biblical things. You can tie it to Revelations even, and all that. But I think it's a natural cycle, to be honest. I'm not saying that man doesn't cause problems with that cycle. I think we definitely are. I think we really need to stop a lot of the things that we're doing, but I don't think that's going to stop by taxing people and then letting the corporations do as they will. I don't see any change there other than more people making more, or well, less people making more money, and us getting poorer and poorer, and of course more regulation and control and everything over us. It's crazy some of the theories that have come out about this climate change. At first, if you recall, it was global warming, and they've really backed off of that. In fact, if you say global warming, they kind of cringe now because the cat's out of the bag, especially when we've had record low temperatures and all that during the winters. It makes it kind of hard for them to prove the global warming trend. Same as the ice on the North and the South Pole, and that's another good thing. We've been increasing with ice. It goes back and forth from the North Pole to the South Pole depending on the time of year. And we've actually had an increase in the amount of ice, not a decrease. So to be real honest, I would say from everything I've looked at personally, and everything that a lot of others have been saying after looking at all the evidence and looking all the proof, and we're probably going into an ice age, a miniature ice age. Hopefully it's a miniature ice age. So it's not going to be global warming. It's going to be more like global cooling. And there's a lot of things that control our weather, like that people don't realize, like the sun, for instance, and sunspots, and just the solar activity on the sun, and has a lot of control over our weather. So it's probably an important thing that people maybe take a few minutes and research into a little bit of it and understand what is really going on. Because I have a feeling we're going to kind of have some dark times in this country coming very, very soon. And when we do, people are going to have to know for themselves what to do, because we're not going to have all the communication and all that we have now that we take for granted every day. Research. I know I've spent my life researching. I got this thing about learning. And but the last 3 years, I had really dove heavy into researching and learning new things. But yeah, just keep an eye on the weather. Those on the East Coast, just keep safe, keep your eyes open, just try and stay dry. Hopefully it gets up and out of here and it doesn't spoil the 4th of July celebrations. So that's about what I have on the weather. The other story that I have that I wanted to really speak about, and this comes from the Register news, it says remaining Snowden documents will be released to avert unspecified U.S. war. It says all the remaining Snowden documents will be released next month, according to the whistleblowing site Cryptum, which said in a tweet that it releases that the release of info by the unnamed third parties would be necessary to head off an unnamed war. Crypton said it would aid and abet the release of 57K to 1.7 megabytes of new documents that had been withheld for national security public debate. The site clarified that will not be publishing the documents itself. Transparency activists would welcome such a release, but such a move would be heavily criticized by intelligence agencies and military officials who argue that Snowden's dump of secret documents has set U.S. and allied intelligence efforts back for years. As things stand, the flow of Snowden disclosures is disclosed by those who have access to the Snowden archive, which might possibly include the Snowden confidants such as Glenn Greenwald and Laura Portreas. I think that's how you say her name. In some cases, even when these people release information to mainstream media organizations, It is then suppressed by these organizations after negotiation with the authorities. In one such case, some key facts were later revealed by the Register. July is when war begins, unless headed off by Snowden full release of crippling intel. After war begins, not a chance of release, Krypton tweeted on its official feed. Warmongers are on a rampage, so yes, citizens holding Snowden documents will do the right thing, it said. For more on Snowden documents released in July, watch for Ellsberg, a special guest on Others at Hope. Hope is Hackers on Planet Earth. It's a well-regarded and long-running hacking conference organized by 2600 Magazine. Previous speakers at the event have included Kevin Mitnick, Stephen Wozniak, and Jello Biafra. In other developments, Krypton has started a Kickstarter fund to release its entire archive in the form of a USB stick archive. It wants to raise $100,000 to help it achieve its goal. More than $14,000 has already been raised. The funding drive allows it to distribute between Krypton and its host network solutions, which is owned by Web.com. Access to the site was blocked following a malware infection last week. Krypton founder John Young criticized the host, claiming it had overreached and had been slow to restore access to the site, which Krypton criticized as a form of censorship. In response, Krypton plans to more widely distribute its content across multiple sites, as well as releasing the planned USB stick archive. I wanted to speak on this for a little bit. I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for that. So this article is definitely pointing at July for war. That's when a lot of stuff has been kind of pointed at, along with the collapse of the economic, the dollar, basically, the collapse of the dollar and war. And I mean, it all makes sense from everything that I've been looking at and watching and keeping an eye on. It's all a card house, everyone. And that card house, I assure you, is coming down. There's no doubt about that card house coming down. And if you look back through history, you will see that often things like major economic collapse are hidden by war. They'll start a war. And I mean, not only that, but we are so intertwined with this global economy that, if we lose the U.S. dollar, a lot of people are going to lose money. There's going to be, it's going to be devastating for a lot of people other than just us here. And that may give reason for some to seek war on our country. Now, if you were to ask my tinfoil hat about the situation, I believe it's all orchestrated to begin with. I believe it's all done just to, all the world is a stage, and I believe that's true. So, people really need to think about that. Things could get really, really crazy in this next month. And if I could ask for people to do things, please go out and buy you a bucket of rice or a big, 50-pound bag or whatever of rice. Go buy yourself a 50-pound bag of some beans. Have a way to filter your water, to clean your water. Just alternative methods of being able to cool yourself off, or make sure you have any medications stocked up. Don't try not to run. I know how that is, but try not to run absolutely short on your medications. Just be ready. Just be ready. Talking about this hurricane going up the East Coast, a lot of people didn't expect Sandy to do what it did, and there was a lot of people that were put in some really hard times and some hard places as a result of when Hurricane Sandy hit. And we all live in this world of it's not going to happen to me. Let me tell you something. You can't live that way, because then when and if it does happen to you, you're just lost. And when it comes to something that's even regional, like a hurricane, a lot of people had generators, but then they couldn't get gas for them. The gas stations didn't have power. And then when certain gas stations that had power, they ran out of gas quick. And then, as I recall, there were, telephone poles and trees all down on the roads and stuff. And the trucks couldn't get to the gas stations to deliver the gas. And it's just a nightmare. And it doesn't really take that much. I mean, of course, you have to be able to afford it and Lord knows I know what that is, not to be able to afford to prepare. I had that all taken care of at one time, but uh, thanks to life events 5.5 months ago, I lost every single bit of that, and I don't have anything, any of my preparations. I always urge people to keep a bug out bag, and my bug out bag is well, a lot of the stuff was taken out of it because I was going through it before the separation of mine, and so I didn't put it back in. Plus, I needed to put clothes in that bag for when I left, and so even my bug out bag isn't very well prepared. But I suggest everybody get a bug out bag, and just, one for everybody in the family. Make sure you put a little thought into it. On the internet, you can go, and there are many, many, many different websites and PDFs, and there's many Facebook groups, and there's a lot of helpful people out there too that would be more than happy to help you put a bug out bag together, what you need to put in it, and how much of what you need to put in it. I recommend for a bug out bag no less than 3 days of provisions in a bug out bag, but that's just my recommendation. As far as your home, like I say, if you could get a big bag, like a 50-pound bag of rice, a 50-pound bag of beans, if you could have a way to filter your water. I've seen a lot of people, preppers if you want to call it, they store water. That water, I'm not going to get into how much water it takes a day for each human being and all that, because a lot of those numbers seem awful high for me. I think they're kind of fear-monger numbers, because you don't absolutely have to bathe every single day, for instance. You don't. Some of the I pretty much drink water, and I don't see myself drinking eight gallons of water in a day. And I'm thinking about, even when I cook and stuff like that, I do believe that some of the numbers I've seen was 8 gallons a day. And unless I take a shower, I don't believe I come close to that 8 gallons of water a day. I mean, I might drink somewhere in the realm of 2 gallons, or in between 2 and 3 gallons a day. And I don't use that much water when I cook. I mean, of course, you got to clean dishes. I mean, there are a lot of things to consider. I could be wrong. But regardless, that's kind of beside the point. If you store water, you're going to run out of water. It's really that simple. I always tell people that, anything really over 90 days is a waste. Like 90 days storage of food, 90 days storage of water. Because really, at some point, you're going to run out. If we would lose power in this country, and we would lose it for 10 years, it doesn't matter if you've got two years of food stored. I would say if you can get past the 90 days, you're doing real good. But beyond that, at some point, you're going to have to go out, and you're going to have to procure these things. You're going to have to be able to obtain water and clean the water. You're going to have to be able to find your own food, hunting or fishing or trapping, or however you may so choose. So I always recommend people kind of put a focus on that. I don't want to make the rest of the show all about just prepping, but it's important. Things can happen in the blink of an eye, for the good or the bad, and I sure know that throughout my life. In less than 24 hours, I lost my entire family, and hadn't been able to see any of them since. Hadn't even been able to talk to my boys. My boys are very precious to me. And in 24 hours, I went from I was becoming content with my situation, to being shown that maybe there's so much better right in front of me, and I do believe there is so much better right in front of me, and that everything can change. I mean, it just takes moments. It just takes moments. We're in the storm seasons, of course, so we got hurricanes, we got tornadoes, we got all that. And then just with everything, our our security is as a whole is heavily threatened. Um, and I'm not going to point fingers or say, Bush shouldn't have did this or Obama shouldn't have did that. It's if you do your research, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. You can tell me to put on a tinfoil hat, but I'm telling you, Obama's not in charge. Putin is not in charge of Russia. The there's other entities that are in charge of them. Uh, when you get higher up beyond the governments, you'll find your banking system, and you'll find the large corporations, and um, a lot of people that don't research into it say, "Oh, that's a bunch of bull," and uh, I I even suggest people not even waste their time to vote, to be honest, because I would like to see uh, the polls open. I'd like to see it if nobody showed up to vote. I wish that would have happened this last time and the time before, really, because we're not being offered good, honest choices. We're being offered candidates that they want to offer us, and we're going to get the same result either way we vote. So it's just a joke. Because those people are sponsored by the exact same banks and the same corporations. So that's what it's like. That's what it's all about. It's all about money. And you look to the good book, money is the root of all evil, and that is very true. And there's an answer to all this. There is. There's a simple one-word cure, and the word would be love. And I'll go back to it again. If you seek God, you will find that love. And that's the only thing that's going to get us through all this. If we, there's so much going on. You've got everything going on with Russia and the Ukraine, and then you've got everything going on with ISIS and ISIL over there in the Middle East. It's a very, very volatile situation. We just haven't had any of it hit our homeland yet. I do fully expect and fully believe that is going to change even as soon as this summer. It's real obvious to me what's going on. I mean, you kind of have to pull yourself back, and you got to look at it with a lot of discernment and an open mind. You can't go get on an airplane now without being molested, or going through a scanner where they can see you absolutely naked on their screen. That's a huge invasion on our liberties, and you have to do it. You have to do it. But yet, right now, you can walk across the southern border from Mexico into the United States unscathed. Nobody will bother you. Nobody. I mean, you can bring a busload of people. I think they're probably providing the buses, to be honest. So you really have to ask yourself, how much homeland security is our government really interested in if they're just letting people cross the border? I'm sure. I already know that there's groups and organizations that have protected that border for years, and they do it without pay. It's a voluntary thing, and I can't think of the name of the one that offhand, but I know somebody that's participated in that. So can't tell me it cannot be done, because it can be done. It's being prevented from being done. And again, if we're so worried about our security in this country, then why are we just opening up that border wide open? Well, blame my tinfoil hat, but I have some theories on that one too. And I think we're going to have some rude awakenings in this country. And it's possible it could be this month. I'm going to say this summer. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a servant. I do feel that I'm a watchman. I've been shown things and that just, they're indescribable. We got some hard times. And again, if I could ask if anybody would just please prepare yourselves and prepare your family. And learn love. Spend some time with God. Just with God. Turn everything off. If you can't go in a pitch black room and just sit in that pitch black room, make time for it. It's very important. You'll learn a lot about yourself, and you'll learn learn a lot about our Creator, and you'll be able to slow down, and you'll learn that understanding and love for other people. And that's what it's going to take to get past this. There's a lot of projects that I had talked about yesterday that I want to share with you all. You know, even from making a simple emergency water filtration system that could very well save your life. A gasifier. I mean, I want it to be common knowledge on how to build a gasifier. I want everybody to have a copy printed out of the FEMA gasifier plans, you know, because it would take that. I ask people, you know, think about how much work it goes in for one loaf of bread. And I'm talking about from the moment you plant the seeds to the moment that you're pulling it out of the oven. There's a lot of work and a lot of time that is involved in that. And I couldn't tell you how much square footage or how much area it would take to grow enough wheat to make that one loaf of bread. I really don't know. I couldn't even begin to guess. But I can tell you this. We're not ready if something were to happen and we would lose all of our technology, like our farm equipment. You know, if something would happen and we couldn't keep our farm equipment fueled, boy, is it going to get rough quick. And that really changes things. We're not ready. We don't have the equipment for horse-drawn stuff. We don't have horses trained for it, and the people aren't trained for it. So that one loaf of bread gets exponentially harder to make. Really hard. And with our population, it's just not feasible. It's not doable. Somehow we would have to be able to get those iron and steel monsters back roaring again. And that's actually possible with the gasifier. You could, you know, this isn't new technology. They did it back in World War II. They were running cars off of it overseas. If you burn wood at a high enough temperature, it will release carbon and hydrogen. And if you filter out the carbon, you'll get hydrogen. And of course, hydrogen is a combustible gas, and it will run a combustion engine. It actually works pretty well. It takes, on the more efficient side, it takes around 14 pounds of wood to equal a gallon of gasoline. So that's on the more efficient side. But I would like to get into that. Again, I'd like everybody to know there's a guy on YouTube that I would really suggest that people check out. And he's got some wonderful videos on building gasifiers. And I'm pulling up his channel right now so I can give you his channel name. I'm looking. Hang in there. Flash, I believe that's Flash 001 USA. FLASH 001 USA. If you go to that gentleman's YouTube channel, he's got I forget how many videos he's up to. He's probably around 28 videos or something now, and he takes you step by step on how to build a gasifier, and it's actually really not that hard. I suggest that anybody that has the knowledge of working with tools and whatnot, you know, talk to your friends, your neighbors, your family, and stuff like that. Tell them about the gasifier. See if they would like one. See if, you know, for those that can work with their tools and use their minds in that type of manner, you know, we need to get these things built because, you know, you can call me crazy all you want, but I just love people. That's all. I just love people. I don't want to see society fall, just absolutely, completely fall, because of a simple lack of education, a lack of understanding, and a lack of love for one another. And that's what we're looking at right now. Our system is absolutely so fragile. We've had 2 terror attacks on power substations, I believe, in the last year. One of them was, the last one didn't work out so well. That was down in the southwest. Somebody had built an explosive device and apparently didn't put too much thought into it. It didn't achieve the impact that they wanted. But in another instance, somebody just took some rifles and shot transformers at a substation. And those transformers have oil in them to keep them cool. And of course the oil drained out and the transformers overheated, and that was the end of that. Those transformers, we don't even make them over here anymore, and if we ordered one, it would take over a year to get it, and that would be like if we ordered one. Imagine, imagine if we need hundreds, if not thousands of them. So, I mean, that's just one thing that could happen, one thing that we need to look at. Our borders are not secure. They're not. Our southern border is wide open. Why they're even bothering with the airports and stuff anymore is just beyond me. It just makes no sense. The TSA is just an invasive organization, and they're not doing any good. In fact, if you talk to people, not very many people say that they feel safer because the NSA is there. Let me tell you something. What you can do if you believe the 9/11 story and how it went, you could do the same thing with a pencil. It doesn't have to be a box cutter. You could do it with a pencil. You could sharpen the end of a toothbrush. I don't know. There's a million ways you can do it. I mean, just use your imagination. It's not hard. It just takes intent. It takes intent. That's all it is. One of the silliest things I've ever heard of is orders of protection. Trust me, I've dealt with that enough. Silliest thing I've ever heard. That piece of paper doesn't do anything. It all depends on the intent of somebody. I surely don't have the intent to harm anybody. And so therefore, anybody that would feel they need to have one of such things on me, they're already safe. That paper didn't make them safe. It was my intent that made them safe. Now, they could further make themselves safer by, getting self-defense training or buying a firearm or, any numerous amounts of ways they could go about making their own lives safer. But the safety is a personal responsibility, and that's whether it's, again, having a firearm to defend yourself and your loved ones, or whether it's putting back 50 pounds of rice and 50 pounds of beans so that your family have food. That it's all goes for the same thing, and we're all responsible. Because let me tell you what, FEMA can't even handle when a major tornado hits. They can't handle when a major hurricane hits. If we have a national-sized event, why does anybody believe that our government can possibly help us or take care of us? It's just not possible. It's not feasible. Now let me give you a little bit of another tidbit of info. But in the case of a national emergency like that, you'd very likely have other countries that may want to take over or try to take over because it's just an opportune time. When a country's on its knees, that's an opportune time for another country to come in and take over control. So just give everything I said some food for thought. I know I didn't really do a whole lot of news tonight. I did a whole lot of jacking my jaw about preparedness and the importance of it. I didn't even talk as much about love as I wanted to. And that's where we need to focus. We need to focus on God, and we need to focus on love. And if you ever question anything I have to say, take it to God. I don't want you to just take my word for it. Take it to God. Go in that quiet room and sit there and sit there and sit there and ask until He answers. Don't take my word for it. Don't take any other man's word for it. We got some hard times coming, folks. It's coming, and nothing we can do to stop it. The only thing that we can try to do is change our own future by changing how we allow it to impact us. That's all we can do. So, alrighty, that sounds like a wrap to me. I love you all, and you all take care, and pray. Like I said, pray. Spend some time with God. Probably the most important thing people can do right now. That and repent. Repent. Try to stop sinning. Apologize to those that you may have wronged. That helps a lot. I'm sure it not only helps in God's eyes, but it also helps you on the inside. It helps you with that love. It helps you release some of that bitterness, some of that baggage we carry around. So I hope everybody has a good evening. Once again, I love you. always be one with your spirit. And I will talk to you tomorrow at 7 p.m. This is Mike Callahan. This is the Watchtime News, or Watchman News. I'll get it right. Y'all have a good night. Bless y'all.